everyone loves a shiny new toy, and it looks like we are about to get another shiny new toy. And we have just apparently, according to many of the Twitterati out there, have signed Bilal Khannouss. Who is this guy? He is a Belgian Moroccan midfielder. Morocco is who he plays for. We're signing him from Genk, and Genk is Wilfred Ndidi's old team, and we actually paid a fairly big amount of money to them to sign him a few seasons ago too.
About the same amount as well.
I believe so. Although I have heard that this is apparently the second biggest sale in Belgium, if it goes through. Although I think at current prices, it's not really a surprise. So done a bit of research here. We obviously can't show videos on the live stream, but this guy, just so you know, he is the current reigning Belgian Young Player of the Season. And Lox and I did a quick transfer video just before the game started. And some previous winners of that award include someone called Yuri Tillemans, might have heard of him. Axel Witsel, might have heard of him. Charles de Ketelaere, he was another one. And Leon Bailey. They didn't all work out. Another one was Wesley, who went to Aston Villa and stunk the place out. But in general, he's keeping some good company. In terms of what kind of player profile we're getting, very interesting player profile, I would say. And in fact, I'll show this next as well. I've also got him compared to Keane and Dewsbury-Hall, but we'll come back to that in just a second. So what has he done in the Belgian league? Well, if you look at his kind of creativity, it's absolutely off the charts. Look how many progressive passes, his attempted passes, his shot creating actions, and look how many assists he gets. This guy, you know, he absolutely creates things for other people to put it in the back of the net. Do we have someone to put it in the back of the net? Well, that will have to kind of answer in another chapter. But for sure, you need to be able to create them. And that's very important. However, I think another thing that's going under the radar here is look how good he is on his tackling. Even his blocks and clearances is pretty good for someone who essentially looks more of a kind of playmaker. And again, look at these stats here where he ranks in terms of aerials 1. So it's a physical league, the Premier League. And this is someone that you think will be able to hold it up and do pretty good. So that's the type of player that we're signing. And it's kind of interesting because he's basically gone on strike to force the move through. And the last player that did that was Wesley Fofana. And whilst it was nice when he came into the team, it didn't work out so nicely when he wanted to leave the team. And I do suspect that the reason why he's probably in the team or wants to come to Leicester is he sees this as a shop window. Some other good comments here. Thank you guys for getting involved. Be good on a high press. I agree. That's what this kind of suggests. And I think that's probably how Genk play. A lot of the Belgian teams play that way themselves. And from Slayer, it's good. Cooper wants a 10 who can press and hold his own in duels and challenges. It's the same with Buonanotte. Totally agree. And I'll ask you about him in a second, Neil, but I've been extremely impressed with Buonanotte, given that he's just 19. And the thing that impressed me the most was how strong he is on the ball. Like, he receives it under pressure against people that are clearly bigger and stronger than him, but he doesn't lose the ball. And he manages to shift his way around. And, you know, my sort of criticism of Bobby Reid at the moment is I feel the move breaks down too much when it gets to him. This is something that Jose Perez used to have for Leicester as well. Like, he did a lot of hard work defending, but the move broke down when it got to him. Whereas with Buonanotte, whenever the ball gets to him, he keeps it going until he gets gassed. So I've been extremely impressed. And I've got a feeling that Buonanotte and Bilal El Khannouss, Beck, as I'm going to call him from now on, that those two are probably going to rotate in their kind of minutes. Buonanotte is the one that is ready right now because he's already played in the Premier League. But probably as the season goes by, I expect Beck to come in instead because we're going to be able to keep him. Although, I don't know, if we did stay up and there was an opportunity to keep Buonanotte, I'm sure that, that is a possibility. But yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I think also, just by the way, you can star messages and come back to them. So something like that, you can just to let you know. So it might have an option for you. In terms of he looks like a really good player, and I'm with you. I think what might happen is that he comes into the team, Buonanotte comes out, and I think there's a chance that Brighton might go, do you know what? He'll be better off in our team. We'll bring him back in January. Because it is a potential start, but I'm really excited by the kid. I think he's what we've been looking for. And I think I really want to see how he works in tight spaces because something like Maddison or Buonanotte, they're really good at that. When a couple of players are pressing on them, and as we mentioned before, to be able to keep possession and then kind of wiggle past. With him, with Mavididi either side, and then with Mavididi one side and Fatah with the other, that is a strong and then hopefully a good striker if Jamie Vardy's not fit. That's a really strong team.
Yeah. Well, I just thought I'd bring this up because I think at the start of the window, the obvious question was, where is the Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall replacement? And I couldn't believe it wasn't the first signing that we made. In fact, I was pretty angry when Okoli came in. Not anything against him, but I just thought, surely, if you're going to prioritize, why haven't you brought that position in? Especially seeing players like Gabriel Sara and then Albert Grumbach go, I couldn't believe that we hadn't tried to pick up either of them. But compared the radar charts between the two, they're pretty similar, I would say. KDH was absurd last season. I don't think people realize just how bonkers he was. But you can see that in terms of shot creation, passes attempting, assists, very similar, same with progressive passes. So really good to see. And he's always like a mini Dewsbury-Hall, actually much better on the tackling aspect as well, which is interesting, suggesting that he's got a better natural ability. That said, you can see that Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall was just a great all-rounder. Even better than that, he was just an excellent player, clearly one of the best players in the championship. So he's going to be hard to replace. But I think what we've got in terms of upward potential, he's got an absolute ton there. Of course, the proof is in the pudding. Can he settle in the league? Can he do it right away? We don't really know, but I am liking what I've seen here. Just want to bring up a few more comments here that I think are interesting.
Just one. Progressive carries, is that dribbling?
Yes, that is it's dribbling, but it's not. Yeah, it's not beating a man. It's taking the ball upfield. So
yeah,
how can I describe this? You know, the best player I can think of, actually, there's two players I can think of who are great at this. One was Yaya Toure, and the other was Moussa Dembele, who used to play for Spurs. But he was a central midfielder, but he'd receive the ball under Pochettino, and then he'd get fouled. But when he'd get fouled, he'd literally move the ball up 30 yards and meant that their entire team could shift up, and it was very useful for them. So I think that was pretty good. So yeah, I'm just going to go through a few more comments then that kind of all around the place, but very useful, I think, to go. One from Luke. Do you think in a 4-3-3 we could drop Skip or Ndidi to play this lad and Facundo to favour more aggressive pressing 11 against lower end sides like Southampton? I think that's totally possible. I think, to be fair to both Steve Cooper and even, I dare say, the entire club, I think we're starting to build quite a good squad here. It does feel like there's multiple people for multiple positions. So if someone's out of form or having a bad game, you've got a replacement. You've got some versatile players who can play all over the place. Everyone's got high pressing statistics, which I think is good. So I think we could play that way. It'd be interesting to see that. What I would say is that Southampton, I don't know if you saw their game against Nottingham Forest, who sadly have started quite well. And I only say sadly because I think they're one of the teams who we thought might go down. And what happened is Southampton, I think, had like 75% possession, but they only had 4 shots, whereas Nottingham Forest had something like 24 shots. They just completely played on the counter and beat them. And that's how we played against them last season. It's like Russell Martin doesn't change his style of play. So do we need to press them? I would just say we just need to make sure we've got a threat on the break. But I think it's a very good question. And I would say we could play that style against other teams. It doesn't necessarily have to be Southampton. What do you think about that?
No, I'm with you. I'm just something I was thinking about just now as well. Could we play a box midfield with El Khannouss, Buonanotte, Jamie Vardy up top? You know, we played last season. You've got Winkston and Diddy in behind, or Winkston Skip. Because that way, if we're chasing a game where we need a goal, you've got all the attacking threat with 3 in behind. And then you've got your 5 up top, which is your, say, Vardy in this case, Mavididi. Then you've got Fatah one side, El Khannouss on the other, and Buonanotte on the other.
Well, I think definitely if we're chasing the game, we're going to start taking off some of the CDMs and put more attacking players on. So I wouldn't be surprised if we end the game like that, but not necessarily sure we will start the game like that. But it remains to be seen. Another one that I want to bring up, which I think is a fair point, is that, okay, if we've signed this lad and he's a really good creative player, would they be it? Or will they try for a striker also? Jordan Ayew played up front today and he scored, but he has only scored, I think, 4 goals in the last 2 seasons in the Premier League. So what do you think? Do you think a striker's coming in, or do you think that's our budget blown on Bilal?
It's a really tough one. I think Tom Cannon is gone, and I don't know what he makes of Daka. And it's all dependent on what is Daka's role this season, because he didn't impress last season, let's be honest. I'm 50-50 on it. I've got a feeling that we're not going to go out and spend. If we need a striker, nobody's going to want to lose the striker this late in the window
Yeah,
without a
although I like this
replacement.
from Tyler. I'll say it until it's spoken to in existence. Cannon and 5 million for Josh Sargent from Norwich. Josh Sargent, I got to give him his props. He presses like a maniac, and
Yeah,
he's one of those that maybe he's
Sargent.
quite similar to Ayew. He doesn't necessarily have the best technical quality, but he'll almost force it into the back of the net through sheer hard will. I think he'd actually be pretty good for a team like us. Whether or not Norwich would sign him, I don't know. Luke, just for the 500 millionth time, has said Daka should never be in a team ever again. Tell us how you really feel. Daka needs someone up front with him. Well, I suppose that the way that we play two people press up there. Look, I would say that Daka was the one that started all of the preseason games, although it did appear that Vardy was injured. So I think he was absolutely being planned to do it. You know, he's hard-working, pressing and passes. Obviously, his finishing is there. I mean, for me, I would absolutely, if possible, sign a striker. But we talked about this just before the match. It's like, who is even out there that you could get that would genuinely make a big difference right now? And I couldn't think of anyone. I don't know if you've been following Nottingham Forest, but they are trying their hardest to sign a striker. They've had like 4 or 5 bids accepted, and then the players have turned them down. Like they were linked with the Mexican international Santiago Jimenez from Feyenoord. He looks wicked, but the bid was accepted and the player declined them. So what can you even do? And like, I hate to say it. Oh God, this pains me to say this, but as of right now, Forest are more likely to stay up than we do, given that they're not going to have a points penalty. So if they can't get him, I don't see us getting a player like that. The one I could see happening is I could see Fofana, Datro Fofana, that is, join us on loan from Chelsea, or maybe even Armando Broja. But the problem is that both those teams are sort of saying that they'll only get rid of the player if it's an obligation to buy. And I wouldn't want to take them on an obligation because you just don't know. There you go. Do you know the one I'm a bit jealous of?
I want to say with quite a few players. There's quite a few, from what I've heard, quite a few Chelsea players that we're in talks with, but it is going to just be for a loan for now. Without, again, as you're mentioning, they're trying to shift them off, and with an obligation to buy, and it just doesn't look like it's happening because Leicester City are like, well, we don't know what we're doing, and in that sense, we are holding out for a better opportunity.
Yeah, I like what Tyler says here. I wouldn't want to play for Forest either with how quickly they toss players away. Good on Santi. That's pretty good. Diego, welcome. Excited about Bilal. He's going to be expected to hit the ground running, and that could be bad. I agree with that, but I feel that because we've got Buonanotte, he doesn't need to do it immediately. And I think I've said this before. I think he might not even be properly used before Christmas.